Welcome to the She's Just Not That Into You podcast, where we're redefining female experiences and prioritizing female perspectives. I'm Brianne.
And I'm Jiyoon. We are two friends with global background, sharing our multicultural experiences and discussing everything that sparks our passion.
Every week, we have honest, intimate conversations that we hope will inspire and empower not only each other, but women everywhere. Right, so I'm sure everyone has seen all the news stories about what's been happening in South Korea this week. And, since it's a very timely topic, we thought we definitely need to discuss this on our podcast, especially because Jiyoon is living in Seoul right now. So she's been involved with everything that's been going on. And yeah, I just thought it would be a great opportunity for everyone to hear her firsthand experiences. And yeah, so June, did you want to start by telling everyone a brief summary?
Yeah, it was so chaotic. Still cannot believe what's been happening. Okay, so before I get into what's been happening, I think it's important to talk about what something like this means to the Korean people. And to
Right.
do so, I think I need to talk about Korea's history just a little bit. So, Korea's history isn't just about something that we learn in books, it's really ingrained in who we are. So we went through colonization under Japan, and it wasn't just about oppression, like it was about everything being taken away: our culture, our freedom, our ability to grow as a nation, and our ability to grow as an individual as well. Just all of it. Everything just came crashing down during the period. So we had to go through one of the most difficult period of times in our history under Japan. And despite all that, there were people who fought, who wanted independence, and who actually acted. And thanks to them in 1945, we finally got it. We were free from Japan. And at that moment, I think there was this hope, this sort of belief that we could build something new, that we could build something better, that we can move forward and leave everything behind and take back what was once ours, what was still ours. But after the liberation, South Korea was under the influence of the US military control, and America, they decided to side with these pro-Japanese people. That's how basically Syngman Rhee came into power. He was anti-communist, he spoke English, and he basically checked all the right boxes for the US. So he became our first president. But here's the thing, once he got in, he started abusing his power almost immediately. He was so authoritarian. He declared martial law, silencing people, killing innocent citizens, rigging elections. Like, he literally had more votes than the total number of eligible voters.
Wow.
I mean, how does that even make sense? It's absurd, right? So people were probably thinking, we've had enough, right? And there was this student who protested against rigging elections, and his body was found with a tear gas canister lodged in his eye. So it was like a match was lit. Like, everyone broke out everywhere. And here's the crazy part, it wasn't the grown ups, they were high school students. They were middle school students and college students. And there were some elementary school kids as well who joined then. And it became bigger and bigger. It wasn't just about election fraud anymore. It became a full on a movement to overthrow the dictatorship. And it worked. He was forced to step down. But it wasn't just about a how do I say, single victory. It was proof that when we stand up against injustice, the most powerful person in the country, like Syngman Rhee, who was so untouchable, you can even step that kind of person down. So it was this very incredible, almost magical moment of power to the people. It gave people this sense of victory, sense of hope, sense of belief that we have power. We have power to take things down when they're not right. But it wasn't the end of the story again. The fight just didn't stop there. Right after we got rid of Ri, a military coup happened, which made Park Chung-hee come into power. And I know that he's credited with building Korea's economy, but it came at a huge cost. There was no democracy, there was no freedom, there was no human rights. So martial law became his go-to move to control the public. It was like a cycle: oppression, and we resist, and there was more oppression. So basically, it was a cycle of oppression, resistance, and more oppression and resistance. And even after he was assassinated, it wasn't over. There was Gwangju afterwards. There was another defining moment. There are several ways to call it. I will just call it the Gwangju Uprising in 1980. So what happened is that the president back then, he declared martial law in this city called Gwangju, and the people of Gwangju, they stood up to military violence, and it was such a traumatic experience for the people of Gwangju and for the Korean people who had to witness everything through media, through newspaper, and through everything. Because by then, everyone knew what the government was capable of and how the soldiers were trained to kill people. It was so brutal, and so many people got killed. So many people just had to die. And this Gwangju uprising, this Gwangju democracy movement, this is actually what Han Kang's book Human Acts is about. It's that painful, and it really sparked something that led to the June democracy movement in 1987, and basically that's how we finally got direct presidential elections. And from there, things like women's rights movement, movements about the environment, peace movement, and everything, they all started to grow. So yeah, we've been through a lot. Korea is literally built on protests for liberation, for democracy, for freedom, for what's right, from the colonization period under Japan, from the time of our first president to the June democracy movement in 1987. It has always been like that. Martial law was declared repeatedly, and every time it happened, so many innocent lives were lost. Each declaration of martial law, I mean, not just martial law, but I will just focus on that here, it came with such an unimaginable suffering. And every Korean knows that. It's something that's still felt today. So, yeah, these. Oh my god, I'm getting emotional. Okay.
Oh my God, I'm getting emotional too. It's just so moving to hear this condensed history about the resilience and fighting spirit of the Korean people. It's really interesting and something I would never have known about if you hadn't explained it all like this. So, yeah, thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm glad that it helped. So these are the short historical contexts to really understand how we process what's been happening. We have very traumatic historical experiences, but at the same time, we are very proud of what we have achieved throughout the history. It's our identity. Fighting for what's right, fighting for freedom, fighting for democracy. It's all in our DNA. Like, we are fighters, we are warriors, we always fight. And I think that's exactly why nothing gets under our skin more than a government trying to take away our freedom or control our lives. That's just not something that we can tolerate. And you know what? Even recently we've seen it. We've protested over and over and over again. Like
Yeah, right.
Park and Haas impeachment, prosecutorial reform, you just name it. We always fight. We always protest. We always, go out to the streets. We always take things down. So for Koreans, martial law isn't just some scary government order or signal that war is gonna happen. It's way deeper than that. It's an attack on the democracy that we built with blood, with tears, with death. They were so unnecessary.
Oh my god.
And it's directly going against everything that we've been through, and who we are. And even though I didn't personally live through the worst of those times, I've grown up hearing all those stories.
Yeah.
My parents, my grandparents, they really made sure we knew what it cost to get here, what it cost to be what we are right now.
Wow, yeah, this is just so moving to hear all of this. I'm getting like so emotional listening to you speaking about this.
Thank you. It means a lot. Yeah, so that night I was out with my friends, director friend of mine, a writer friend of mine, and some of my ex-colleagues, and we were at this really sort of a vintage bar that lets you smoke indoors, which is super rare in Korea. The vibe was nice. It was all like vintage, and we were talking about like movies and
Right.
TV shows, dramas, and about life and everything. And I went to the toilet and I came back to the table and was checking my phone and I read the headline, martial law declared. My first reaction was, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is this?
Mm.
Seeing my reaction, everyone just pulled out their phones and everything just dropped. And I wasn't actually like scared.
Yeah.
My reaction wasn't simple like fear or confusion. It was a visceral response: rage, helplessness, shock,
Yeah.
and disbelief. It's like, how dare you? How dare you as the president? It's like, how could you, like, how could you declare martial law instead of protecting something that your people have fought for decades? Like, how dare you? It felt like all my blood drained from my body, and I had this really really sharp clarity, and I could only think about one thing: I had to act. There wasn't time to process everything, there wasn't time to feel, there wasn't time to cry, there wasn't time to be furious. There was only the overwhelming, urgent thinking that I needed to do something. But there was this deep, almost physical weight at the same time. They came over me. It was as if every single memory of Korea's painful history, the stories I learned in schools, through books, the ones that my parents told me, the lessons, stories, and everything that we were taught in school and saw on TV, it really felt like they were flooding back into my body all at once.
Mm.
This wasn't just about a single event. It was the trauma of all these moments in modern Korean history where martial law was declared, where innocent lives were lost, and where the people suffered unthinkable pain. It felt like I was carrying all of that in me for a moment. And that's what it feels like to be a Korean in my 30s, living through this exact moment right now. So even without thinking, I was like, we have to go to the National Assembly. We have to go.
Wow.
My friends hesitated, but I insisted. I immediately called the most expensive taxi that I could find because honestly, I didn't think any cabs would be available. So we got to Yeouido, which is where the National Assembly is, and it was chaos. Lawmakers, they were climbing fences to get into the locked building. I didn't see any tanks. I know people who saw them, but I didn't see tanks. But helicopters were circling in the sky, and there were already like a few hundred people there. It was very late at night, around like midnight or so, like 11 p.m. There were parents with their children, people with flags, people with megaphones, and I also saw a foreign journalist in the middle of everything. He was typing, I don't know, something on his laptop, and I just remember standing there protesting, crying, and shouting that he needs to step down, and just really feeling everything at once. And then around 1 in the morning, I think we heard some cheers and clapping from afar, and we were like, what is happening, what is happening, what is happening? And someone said martial law had been lifted, just like that. It was over within 2 hours or so. It was done. It felt so unreal, so surreal. But we didn't go home. I went back out drinking soju with my friends until like 4 in the morning. The true Korean fashion.
Oh my god. Yeah, 1 a.m.
Yeah,
And this was on a work night as well, right?
is the weekday. I know, but like we just had to stay outside. Like we had to. I mean, it wasn't like festive, like a drinking, like a party or something. We just had to sit down. We just had to sit down somewhere and needed time to process it, digest it, and just we needed time to talk to each other about that, about really what just happened.
Yeah. Oh my god. Wow. Yeah, it's so interesting to hear your firsthand experiences of this because, as you're probably aware, the foreign news seems to be going crazy with so many different articles about what's happening and all these posts on Twitter or sorry, X. And yeah, it's just really interesting to hear it from your firsthand experience. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners. I'm sure it'll be really interesting for people to hear as well. And yeah, the whole history about Koreans fighting for democracy, that's really good to know the cultural background as well. And I also wanted to say that I'm so proud of you for going to protest at the National Assembly right away. Because I feel like, without people like you, the martial law might not have been lifted right away within 2 hours. And especially in Japan, where I'm currently living, I know that people are quite hesitant here to speak up and protest and take these kinds of actions. So, yeah, that's really amazing to hear that you did that. And I'm really proud to be friends with you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for saying that. It really means a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because yeah, I think in Japan there's this kind of cultural thing where people tend to be very quiet and reserved, which I guess makes it very peaceful to live here day to day.
Right.
But one thing is that it's not really that common here for people to go to political protests or anything like that. And for example, my mum is Japanese, but she spent most of her life living outside Japan in the UK. But now that she's moved back to Japan since a couple of years ago, and she's literally always complaining that Japanese people are too quiet and submissive and they never go to protests or speak up about important issues.
Hmm.
And my mum's always looking online to see if there are any protests or demonstrations that
Oh
she
my
should join.
God. Oh my God.
but
She's a
but
warrior.
yeah, but then in the end, she usually decides not to go because she's not that young and she thinks it's going to be too
Mm,
physically tiring for her.
right.
And then she was always saying like, "Oh, this is why young people should be going to protest because old ladies like me find it difficult to go." Um,
Oh.
but none of the young people nowadays are speaking up or taking any action, even though they're the ones who have the energy to do so. So yeah, I think it's really great that as a young person you proactive and taking these kinds of steps. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's so true, and I think it explains a lot about the importance of finding someone who can actually do these kinds of things in solidarity. Like, has she been able to find someone around her age who might be as passionate about those kinds of thing as she was? She could have gone to some protests, like, or started something.
Yeah, none of her friends are interested in going, so
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually told my mum about everything that had happened in Korea, and I told her about how Jiyoon had gone to the protest right away, and she was like saying, "Wow, that's so amazing to hear that," because like in Japan, a lot of young people would be really complacent and they wouldn't really go to do stuff like that. So yeah, she thought it was really amazing to hear that. Yeah, I wanted to ask you actually, have you read any of the articles that the foreign news has written about it? For example, in English, and do you think they're portraying the situation accurately?
Yeah, actually, I think they are pretty accurate because, I mean, Korean news outlets, they have been pretty, they have been pretty misleading. a lot of the time, and there is this history of corruption and biased reporting and everything. So honestly, sometimes I rely a lot on the foreign news
Mm,
outlet for more accurate information, and this time as well I feel like the foreign media has reported it pretty accurately. But what I don't like about foreign news outlets is how, especially in Western countries, like there is this tendency to talk about Korea's international affair like as if they have some sort of authority over it.
right.
Yeah, because I think it's us Koreans who get to choose what we do and how we handle everything.
Yeah, yeah.
In other countries, they can support us, they can stand in solidarity with us, but they don't get to dictate what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But a lot of the times, okay, I would say sometimes, some news outlets, they have this sort of tendency to say things as if they get to have a say about what's happening in Korea.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see that happening. Yeah. And actually, so speaking of foreign news, have you seen the memes online about it as well?
Yeah, there's just so many memes about what's happening in Korea right now and the current president.
Yeah.
I've seen some hilarious ones as well.
Okay. I think yeah, we were talking about this soju meme. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but I think it's something about how first third of the bottle of soju starts with, "Oh, this is quite nice and fruity," and then the next third it's "I'm getting quite drunk," and then the final third of the bottle, yeah, by the time you get to the final third of the bottle, it's "Let's declare martial law."
Yeah, oh my god, I've seen that. It's hilarious, especially because I've heard that President Yoon, like he spends a shit ton of money always drinking,
Oh my god.
and he I heard that he enjoys drinking, and given how impulsive he is when it comes to decision making, I feel like the meme is so spot on.
Oh my god, that's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean obviously it's pretty sarcastic. Like martial law shouldn't be something
Yeah.
that you can declare like as if it's not a big deal. But he just did it as if it's something that you can just say like just go declare it. I just feel like doing it, you know?
Okay, and what do you think is gonna happen going forward, or what do you hope the future will be like?
Well, today's December 7th. For the first time after the declaration, he showed up again and he apologized, saying that oh, it's my mistake and he'll be responsible for everything, both legally and politically, but he didn't specifically say anything about stepping down or getting impeached or everything. And he said he's going to actually give every authority to his own party to handle everything related to his administration period and yeah, just everything, which is pretty crazy because it actually excludes the opposition party,
Right, yeah.
and it doesn't make sense at all. And I hope he gets impeached. There's no way he can escape it. And I don't want him to voluntarily resign. I want him to be impeached because that's a totally different situation. I want him to be judged. I want him to be punished. I want him to be responsible for everything he's been doing. So yeah, so impeachment will be inevitable. We'll make that happen.
Yeah. Okay. Um yeah, maybe we can do a follow-up episode about this later if there are any updates.
And I think our protests are going to be at least 4 months or so until we make sure that he is stepping down. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing where you stand on this issue. So, another thing I was actually wondering about is whether you'd be able to share what it means to you to have someone like President Yoon in power when you're living in Korea as a woman.
As a woman, it's really unbearable. Like he's openly denied the existence of structural discrimination against women when it comes to gender equality. He said it officially. He said that it's all personal. He's also been trying to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family,
Wow.
and he also tried to erase terms like gender equality and sexuality from policies and everything. And just a lot of his policies were really misogynistic so far and didn't really align with my value that I try to keep in my life
Okay.
as a woman. So I feel like his government is very systematically trying to erase women from their narrative. It's not just about the neglect itself, it feels really intentional, like he's actively trying to make us invisible. So for me, being a woman in Korea right now, it's really devastating. And how I react, how I respond to this government, it feels really important to me.
Yeah.
Under his administration, I feel like my identity is constantly under control and under attack every day. So when martial law was declared, it sent me a lot of messages and I processed them as Korean, but also as a woman as well. So it was like he was ripping apart everything that I've been really proud of, me as a woman and me as Korean. So yeah, it's really painful, but it's in our DNA. Like I said earlier, we always fight for what's right, and I will as well until he steps down.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that and your personal opinions on everything. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that this happened, but that's inspiring to hear that you're not giving up hope and that you're, fighting for a better future ahead. Thank you so much, Jiyoon, for taking the time to explain all of that to us. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. If anyone has any more questions about any of this, then we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening, and please stand in solidarity with the people in Korea. It's really important and it really means a lot to us. So yeah, thank you. The following audio is from the video clip that I took on site when I was protesting against the President Yoon, and we shouted, "Impeach him immediately." Through this audio clip, I hope you feel the spirit of the Korean protests.